There could be a record for Canadians selected in the NFL draft this year, which starts Thursday night and finishes on Saturday afternoon. Offensive lineman Matthew Bergeron from Syracuse University, identical twins, running back Chase Brown and defensive back Sidney Brown from the University of Illinois, defensive lineman Tavius Robinson from Ole Miss, and offensive lineman Siggy Sow from Eastern Michigan are all projected draft picks. And there is also the chance that receiver Jared Wayne of Pittsburgh is chosen in the later rounds of the draft. Do you foresee a banner year for Canucks being taken in the NFL talent grab?
Yes, I do, but hold up, bro. Tavius Robinson also played at the University of Guelph. Okay, we got to make sure that that's in there. I do see a great chance. Nothing is for certain in the NFL draft, but I think there is a great chance that it is a record-setting year for Canadians selected in the NFL draft. The record is 4. It's happened a couple of times in the NFL draft, and the most recent time was in 2021 when Chuba Hubbard, Josh Palmer, Benjamin St-Juste, and Javon Holland were selected in that pick fest. So I think we'll see 4, likely 5, and perhaps there's a chance for Jared Wayne or somebody else off the board to go late, like a Dean Leonard, who some people thought would be an undrafted free agent last year, but actually got picked in the 7th round out of the University of Calgary and Ole Miss by the Los Angeles Chargers. And the one guy I really want to focus on, and yes, it's ultimately biased because I'm from Guelph and went to the University of Guelph, but it's Tavius Robinson. I think he's a guy that has a lot of untapped potential. And a lot of times those can be guys that behind the scenes really rise in the draft. And I'm not saying he's the same type of player, but I think a similar situation could play out like a David Onyemata, who the New Orleans Saints traded a couple of picks to move up in the NFL draft to make sure they get that guy because they felt like he had that high ceiling. And I think Tavius Robinson is similar to that. This is a guy that is very humble about his football skills and played his high school football in Guelph, went to the University of Guelph, but wasn't one of these cocky U Sports players that I see out there that sometimes don't even dress, or that I hear about, I should say, and think they're going to play in the NFL. He wasn't sure that he was up to that level, but when COVID canceled the U Sports season during the heart of the pandemic, he decided to at least open up his mind and possibilities to transferring, and had interest from a handful of big-time NCAA programs, goes to Ole Miss and has really developed physically and also on the field. But I think the upside is there for him. And I was actually talking to him this week in the lead up to the NFL draft, and him and his agent and his camp and the people around him feel like his sweet spot is between the 3rd and the 5th round. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's earlier than that because of his length, his body, and that untapped potential.
I think Matthew Bergeron is going to be the first Canadian off the board, and if for no other reason than just positional value, right? Offensive tackles. We've heard this from CFL teams. We heard this at the Combine more times than we can count. There's no offensive tackles out there, which, by the way, I think is actually going to help the stock of some of the larger offensive linemen, not just in this year's draft, but even in past year's drafts, guys that the league has either moved on from or guys who maybe went lower in the draft because teams were skeptical as to how well they would translate to the center or guard position, suddenly have new value, right? Because teams are going, okay, there's not as many American offensive tackles out there through NFL practice rosters getting larger, through XFL teams chewing them up, through, USFL teams signing them all. So this is a position that I think is of tremendous value in the NFL, just as it is in the CFL. And some team is going to look at Matthew Bergeron and that 6'5", 320-pound frame, and the fact that he was a very accomplished and also extremely well tenured blocker along that offensive line at Syracuse, and they're going to pick him. I have him in late, mid-second, maybe early 3rd round, but there are murmurs and rumors, and I should note this is also like peak time for smoke screens and purposefully, rumors that are being put out with an agenda, all that. But there are rumors that he could go even in the 1st round. So I'm not saying he's the best player available in the draft. I've talked to talent evaluators who think that Sidney Sow, the offensive lineman out of Eastern Michigan, who's going to go much later in the draft, could even be better than Bergeron. But I think Bergeron will be the top guy off the board simply based on the very high value that offensive tackle position carries.
Yeah, he's long. He moves really well. And to your point, Hodge, I was listening to a mock draft last night that had him go in the back end of the first round because if a team needs a tackle and there's in this draft, it's not particularly deep at that position, right? There's not a whole lot of top high end guys. There's sort of a pack in the middle, and you've got to grab them when the run starts. So if a team finds itself in that situation and likes Matthew Bergeron, it's not outside the realm of possibility that he goes in the first round. The guy I really want to highlight is actually the last one on this list, and the guy most people don't project as drafted. But I think legitimately we could see 6 Canadians drafted because I'm extremely high on Jared Wayne from Pittsburgh. The big knock on him is he is slow by NFL standards, right? He runs a 4.73 in the 40. There's a very, very short list of successful receivers at that speed. You're talking about guys like Jarvis Landry, but also this is allegedly the speed that Jerry Rice ran back in the day. So it's not entirely disqualifying, but it is fairly What?
Let's be careful with.
I'm not saying you. I'm not saying
JC
he's Jerry
Abbott
Rice.
says Jared Wayne is
I'm
Jerry
saying
Rice. End quote.
He ran the same speed as Jerry Rice. That's where the comparisons end. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there is some success stories at that speed. It is unusual for a player to have success at that. But Wayne has all the compensating traits, right? He's got a big physical frame. He's great over the middle, and he is a tremendous, tremendous route runner. Incredibly smart, really detailed, quick out of his breaks. It's the reason he put up more than 1,000 yards at Pitt. And so when you're at the back end of the draft and you're looking at a bunch of guys that you're trying to project to the next level, there may be some guys who have more speed than Jared Wayne. But to me, he's a really good bet to make your roster or at least compete for that spot. And that's what I want to take in round 7. I'm going to take that shot on that guy who has all those other traits, but just has the one deficiency. And so I feel fairly confident saying that there's going to be 6 Canadians taken. That's going to be my bet, and I'm sticking to it because of how much I love the kid from Peterborough.
We'll hold you to it, JC. And regardless of how many go, there's for sure going to be one Canadian that gets selected in this NFL draft, which means that the streak will grow to 13 straight years of a player from north of the border being selected in the NFL draft. And guys, it should be noted that Canadians are not just known as they were in the past now for playing offensive line and defensive line in the NFL. There's literally Canadians playing at every single position in the NFL. And the one big one that everybody's, of course, going to watch during training camp is Nathan Rourke, the quarterback with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who didn't go in the traditional way, but still has a legit opportunity with the Jags. So there's a bit of a northern uprising going on consistently with football players from our home and native land making an impact in the NFL. And there's going to be at least a handful that do so through this 2023 NFL draft.
Well, and I'll encourage our readers to check out your column, Dunk, on all of the Canadian players who have ever been drafted by the NFL. The list is now 70. It's going to grow, obviously, starting Thursday and heading into the weekend. But I will say this. I think that as much as we celebrate this record of 13 years in a row, I almost feel like this record is going to be irrelevant because it's never going to stop. I feel like the chances of there being at least one Canadian taken in every NFL draft moving forwards is very high. There might be a down year one year for one reason or another, but I would be willing to speculate that this streak that we're on, this list that we're on, is not going to end. And that's a great thing for fans north of the border who want to see guys achieve success on the NFL stage.